The day Earth made first contact with an alien civilization should have been humanity's greatest moment. Instead, it became known as the Great Galactic Screw-Up, or as Commander Jack Reynolds put it, Tuesday. Reynolds stood in the United Nations Grand Assembly Hall tugging uncomfortably at his dress uniform collar. After 20 years in the military and 5 years of retirement spent mostly fishing and avoiding responsibility, he had not expected to be pulled back into service as Earth's first alien diplomat. "Remind me again why I'm here instead of literally anyone with actual diplomatic training," Reynolds muttered to his aide, Lieutenant Piper Kim, a brilliant young officer whose perpetual expression suggested she was mentally calculating the probability of mission failure. Today that probability seemed high. "Because, sir," Kim replied without looking up from her tablet, when they asked who had experience dealing with completely unknown hostile entities with unknown capabilities and psychology, your name came up. "That's ridiculous. I just shot the hostiles." "Precisely why you're perfect for this job, sir. You understand the worst-case scenario." The assembly hall hushed as the massive doors swung open. The Krillax delegation entered, led by Grand Dominator Vexlar. The alien stood 7 feet tall with an exoskeleton that shimmered like oil on water. Its forearms ended in pincers that clicked rhythmically, and its compound eyes reflected the room in thousands of tiny facets. "Jesus," Reynolds whispered, "it looks like a lobster had a baby with a disco ball." Kim elbowed him sharply. "That's Earth's future you're talking about, sir." The Krillax approached with mechanical precision, each member of the delegation moving in perfect synchronization. Vexlar stepped forward, mandibles twitching as it activated a translation device. "Humans of Earth," the device boomed, causing several diplomats to jump. "We come as the vanguard of the glorious Krillax Imperium. Your species has been observed and found worthy of notice." Reynolds raised an eyebrow. "Gee, thanks. We're thrilled to be noticed by giant space bugs." The Krillax delegation froze, their antennae quivering in unison. "Sir," Kim hissed, "maybe tone down the sarcasm." "Explain this response," Vexlar demanded. "Our records indicate that being worthy of notice is the highest compliment in galactic diplomacy." The young Secretary General stepped forward, attempting damage control. "Please forgive Commander Reynolds. He employs what we call humor, a social mechanism often used to diffuse tension." Vexlar's head tilted exactly 27 degrees to the right. "Humor. Our database indicates this is a primitive defense mechanism used by lower species to cope with inferiority." Reynolds snorted. "Well, your database needs an update. Also, is your translator stuck on caps lock, or are you just really excited to meet us?" The Krillax delegation huddled together, clicking and chittering. After a moment, Vexlar turned back. "We have consulted. This humor or appears to be a disguise for aggression. Are you threatening the Krillax Imperium, Commander Reynolds?" "What? No, I'm just," because threats are met with appropriate response. The Krillax do not tolerate aggression. The Secretary General stepped in again. "Perhaps we should move to the formal presentation of cultural gifts." Reynolds exhaled in relief as attention shifted away from him. An assistant wheeled in a cart carrying Earth's gifts, a digital library of human literature, music and art, seeds from every continent, an especially commissioned crystal sculpture representing the DNA double helix. "We offer these gifts as symbols of Earth's diversity and creativity," the Secretary General announced. "They represent our greatest achievements and our hope for friendly relations." Vexlar examined the gifts with its compound eyes. "These are unexpected." The Krillax traditionally exchange weapons as diplomatic gifts. "Weapons?" Reynolds perked up. "Now you're speaking my language." Kim closed her eyes in silent prayer. "In that case," Reynolds continued, pulling out his service pistol and presenting it grip first to Vexlar, "this is my personal sidearm. Carried it through 3 tours. It's seen me through some tough spots." The room fell silent. Every human diplomat stared in horror. Vexlar's mandibles clicked excitedly. "This is proper protocol. You offer your weapon demonstrating trust that we will not use it against you." The Krillax took the pistol, examining it with all 4 hands. "Primitive but elegant in its simplicity. We accept this gift." A collective sigh of relief swept through the human delegation. "In return," Vexlar continued, motioning to an aide who stepped forward with a small metallic sphere, "we present the resonance disruptor, capable of liquefying organic matter within a 10-mile radius." Reynolds blinked. "That's thoughtful, but maybe keep the safety on." "Safety? The gift is already armed. To present an unarmed weapon would be a grievous insult." The human delegates began edging toward the exits. "Hold on," Reynolds said, raising his hands. "Let's not do anything hasty with the liquefying ball, okay?" Vexlar placed the sphere on the podium. It will not activate unless commanded. This exchange pleases us, Commander Reynolds. Perhaps your species has potential beyond our initial assessment. Great, Reynolds muttered. We've been upgraded from barely worth noticing to might not liquefy immediately. The Krillax leader's antennae twitched. We would like to observe more of this humor. It is most perplexing. Does it serve a reproductive purpose? Reynolds choked. Kim stepped on his foot before he could respond. Humor serves many social functions, the Secretary General explained diplomatically. It helps us bond, relieves tension, and sometimes expresses ideas that might otherwise cause conflict. It is a form of deception, then. No, not exactly. The Krillax do not deceive. We value absolute precision in communication. Vexlar's compound eyes fixed on Reynolds. Your earlier statements comparing us to Earth crustaceans and reflective entertainment spheres, were these meant as insults? Reynolds sighed. Look, it was just a joke. No offense intended. Yet offense was contained within the statement. This contradiction is troubling. The commander ran a hand through his hair. Welcome to humanity, Bug. I mean, Your Excellency. We're walking contradictions. It's kind of our thing. Vexlar's entire body stiffened. The Krillax Imperium does not tolerate contradictions. They are inefficient and dangerous. Well, you're going to have a hell of a time dealing with us then. Reynolds laughed. We're basically walking paradoxes. We fight wars to create peace. We watch sad movies to feel happy. We call our closest friends by insulting nicknames. The Krillax delegation began vibrating, their exoskeletons producing a high-pitched whine. Warning, logical paradox detected. Initiating defensive protocols. The Secretary General stepped forward. Please, there's no need for defensive measures. Commander Reynolds is simply explaining human nature. Human nature appears designed to disrupt Krillax cognitive functions. This may be classified as a hostile action. Reynolds groaned. Oh, for crying out loud. We're not trying to break your brains. We're just talking. The Krillax Imperium has catalogued over 10,000 species. None have exhibited such dangerous thought patterns. We must recess. The delegation retreated to their ship without further ceremony, leaving the assembled humans in confused silence. 3 days later, the Krillax fleet appeared in Earth's orbit. Their message was simple. After careful analysis, humans have been classified as a Category 1 threat to cosmic order. Correction protocols initiated. And that's when the bombs started falling. Reynolds, watching the first explosions from the emergency bunker beneath the Pentagon, simply nodded. Well, he said to no one in particular. I guess they can't take a joke. The Krillax struck with mathematical precision. Major cities worldwide erupted in chaos as cylindrical ships descended through the atmosphere, deploying what humans would later call logic bombs, weapons that reorganized matter according to Krillax efficiency standards. Reynolds watched from the Pentagon's Emergency Command Center as New York's skyline transformed into perfect geometric patterns before collapsing. They're not just destroying, said Dr. Ellie Morgan, rushing into the room with disheveled hair and a lab coat stained with coffee. They're reorganizing, imposing order. Reynolds turned to the newcomer. And you are? Dr. Eleanor Morgan. DARPA's Quantum Weapons Division. I was developing coffee-powered fusion when they called me in. She gestured at her mug. This is my prototype. General Dana, Doomsday Martinez stormed into the command center, her combat boots leaving muddy prints on the pristine floor. Finally, I've been waiting for this my entire career. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. You've been waiting for an alien invasion. Damn right. Martinez grinned, her eyes gleaming with unsettling enthusiasm. Built my whole military strategy around it. Everyone called me crazy. Who's crazy now? She looked around expectantly. Still me. Fair enough. The room shook as something impacted nearby. Status report. Martinez barked at a terrified analyst. Krillax forces have hit 37 major cities. They're systematically targeting infrastructure, but avoiding maximum casualties. They're being efficient, Morgan observed, pouring more coffee into her mug fusion reactor. Minimal force, maximum impact. Reynolds nodded. They're not trying to exterminate us. They're trying to correct us. Correct us, Martinez snorted. Good luck with that. Humanity doesn't do correction. The main screen flickered to life with Vexir's image. Humans of Earth, Your species represents a dangerous anomaly in the cosmic order. Your illogical thought patterns and intentional contradictions threaten universal stability. Reynolds stepped forward. So you're bombing us because we have a sense of humor. Correction protocols are necessary. We will reorganize your civilization into efficient patterns. Resistance is... Vexir's Lar paused. Actually, resistance is expected given your species' inherent defiance of logic. The transmission cut. Well, they're learning, Reynolds muttered. Morgan studied the attack patterns on the digital map. There's something odd here. The Krillax are avoiding certain targets. Entertainment venues, art museums, comedy clubs. They're targeting our infrastructure but preserving our culture. Reynolds frowned. Why? Martinez squinted at the map. They're studying us, like scientists observing lab rats. Or they're afraid of something in our culture, Morgan suggested, her eyes widening. What if our illogical thinking is actually dangerous to them? The room rocked again as another impact hit closer. Theoretical discussions are great, Reynolds said. But right now we need to fight back. General, what have we got? Martinez's grin was terrifying. Oh, I've been preparing for this since I was 12. Operation Alien Apocalypse is ready to deploy. You named an operation before aliens even showed up, Reynolds asked. I named 17 different operations for 17 different alien invasion scenarios. Martinez replied without a hint of embarrassment. This one falls under technologically superior insectoid overlords. Morgan blinked. That's disturbingly specific. Laugh now, but my crazy preparation is about to save humanity. Martinez tapped commands into her tablet. I've already activated our experimental EMP satellites. They won't stop the Krillax, but they'll disrupt their communications. On cue, the screen showed Krillax ships faltering momentarily before resuming their assault. It worked, Morgan exclaimed. But they adapted almost instantly. Of course they did, Martinez sighed. Logical species always have redundancies. But it confirmed my theory. They're vulnerable to unexpected tactics. Reynolds watched the Krillax ships resume their patterns. They recover quickly, but there was a moment of confusion. Exactly, Martinez nodded. Their strength is their precision. Their weaknesses, chaos. Morgan finished. Human unpredictability. Reynolds looked between the two women. So we fight logic with insanity. That's actually brilliant. A junior officer rushed in. Sir, civilian reports coming in. The Krillax ground forces are deploying in Los Angeles, but they're malfunctioning. The screen showed footage of Krillax soldiers encountering street performers on Venice Beach. The aliens stopped, their movements becoming erratic as a mime pretended to be trapped in an invisible box. They can't process performance art, Morgan whispered. Their logical minds are trying to understand why a human would pretend to be trapped by nothing. Reynolds' face split into a slow grin. Ladies, I think we just found our counterattack. The room shook again, harder this time. Martinez checked her tablet. They've launched their second wave. We're running out of time. Then we better get weird, Reynolds said. Very, very weird. Reynolds, Morgan and Martinez huddled in what remained of the Pentagon's strategy room, now converted into what Martinez enthusiastically called Operation Weird War. We've confirmed it, Morgan said, displaying brain scans of a captured Krillax drone. Their neural pathways are designed for absolute logical processing. Encountering human illogic causes actual physical disruption in their cognitive systems. Reynolds studied the images. So we weaponize our weirdness. Exactly, Martinez nodded. We've already seen success with the Venice Beach performers. The Krillax units froze completely when a clown made a balloon animal and then popped it for no apparent reason. The door burst open as a disheveled man with wild eyes and wilder hair stumbled in, escorted by two bewildered security officers. Sir, one guard began. This man claims he has critical alien intelligence, but he doesn't have clearance. Ziggy Pulowski, the man announced, extending a hand covered in conspiracy theory notes written in marker. I've been preparing for this day since the government put microchips in breakfast cereal to track our dream patterns. Reynolds glanced at Martinez. Friend of yours? Never seen him before, Martinez replied, but I like his energy. Morgan peered at Pulowski. How did you get into the Pentagon during an alien invasion? Easy. I followed the conspiracy breadcrumbs, Pulowski explained as if it were obvious. The Illuminati always leaves a back door. Also, your northeast service entrance is unguarded because the aliens don't think illogically enough to use a door clearly marked "No entry." Reynolds blinked. That actually makes sense in a completely nonsensical way. Exactly. Pulaski slammed a tattered notebook on the table. I've been documenting alien weaknesses for 20 years based on absolutely no evidence whatsoever. Turns out I was accidentally right about most of it. Morgan flipped through the notebook. This is actually brilliant. There's no scientific basis for any of it, but it might work precisely because it's so illogical. Martinez grinned. I'm starting to like our chances. The building shook as another Krillax bombardment hit nearby. We need to move fast, Reynolds said. What's our best shot? Morgan pointed to Pulaski's notebook. According to his research, the Krillax communication systems rely on pure logic patterns. If we broadcast enough illogical content, we might disrupt their entire network, like jamming their frequencies with nonsense. Reynolds asked. Not just any nonsense. Pulaski interjected. Premium-grade human nonsense. Dad jokes. Internet memes. Reality television. Philosophy questions with no answers. How do we deliver this weapon-grade absurdity? Martinez asked. Morgan's eyes lit up. The global satellite network. We can hijack it to broadcast directly to their ships. 30 minutes later, the team had assembled in the Pentagon's communications center. Technicians frantically wired together broadcasting equipment while Morgan programmed the transmission sequence. First test ready, she announced. I'm starting with something simple. The chicken crossing the road joke. That's your idea of a weapon? Reynolds asked skeptically. Trust me, Morgan replied. To a species that values logical precision, a pointless circular joke is cognitive poison. She initiated the broadcast. On the monitors they watched as a Krillax ship directly overhead suddenly wobbled in its flight path. It's working, Martinez exclaimed. Hit them with more. Deploying Phase 2. Memes about cats wanting cheeseburgers despite lacking money or opposable thumbs. Morgan typed furiously. The effect was immediate. 3 more Krillax ships began flying erratically. Encouraged, Reynolds grabbed the microphone. This is Commander Jack Reynolds broadcasting to all Krillax ships. Why did the chicken cross the road? To get to the other side. Pulaski jumped in. If a tree falls in the forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? Martinez leaned into the microphone. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? On screen the Krillax ships began to spin in confusion. It's working, Morgan cheered. Their logical systems can't process these contradictions and circular references. Reynolds turned to the communications team. Broadcast everything. Dad jokes, puns, knock-knock jokes, philosophical paradoxes, everything. Across the globe, human resistance fighters received the strategy and began implementing their own versions. In Tokyo, street performers acted out absurdist theater directly beneath Krillax ships. In Rio, carnival dancers performed routines that followed no discernible pattern. In London, a group of philosophers debated whether a burrito was a sandwich near a Krillax landing site. The alien forces began to falter worldwide. We've got them on the defensive, Martinez reported, watching the global tactical display. Krillax ground troops are retreating to their ships. Reynolds nodded. Time for the knockout punch. Dr. Morgan, are you ready with the main broadcast? Morgan stood beside a hastily assembled device that resembled a satellite dish crossed with a karaoke machine. Ready. I've compiled the most illogical content from human history. Dadaist art, surrealist films, quantum physics explanations and my personal favorite, all seasons of a reality dating show where people get married without seeing each other. Fire when ready, Reynolds ordered. Morgan initiated the broadcast. The effect was immediate and devastating. Krillax ships worldwide began spinning, their precise formations dissolving into chaos. Vexillar's face appeared on the command center screen, its compound eyes twitching erratically. Cease your attack. Your transmission contains no logical structure. How can humans both desire truth and fabricate elaborate deceptions for entertainment? Why do you laugh at misfortune? Why do your mating rituals involve artificial scarcity dynamics? Reynolds leaned into the camera. That's just the beginning, Vexlar. Wait until you discover our political debates. The Krillax leader's exoskeleton vibrated with distress. Withdrawal protocols initiated. Your species represents a cognitive hazard. The transmission cut out. On the tactical display, they watched as Krillax ships began ascending from Earth's atmosphere, their once perfect formations now a disorganized mess. We did it, Martinez exclaimed, punching the air. We actually repelled an advanced alien invasion with dad jokes and reality TV. Reynolds began to smile, but it faded quickly as he studied the retreating ships. They're not leaving Earth orbit, they're regrouping. Morgan frowned at her instruments. And they're adapting, the same illogical content isn't affecting them anymore. Pulaski looked up from his conspiracy notebook. Of course, they're implementing cognitive firewalls, logical barriers to prevent our nonsense from penetrating their systems. So our advantage was temporary, Reynolds concluded grimly. Not necessarily, Morgan replied. They can adapt to known forms of human illogic, but they can't anticipate new ones. We just need to keep creating fresh nonsense faster than they can adapt. Martinez laughed. Well, creating nonsense is humanity's specialty. A junior officer rushed in. Sir, the Krillax fleet is repositioning. They appear to be bringing something massive through their wormhole. On the main screen, they watched as a colossal ship emerged into Earth orbit, dwarfing the other Krillax vessels. What the hell is that? Reynolds whispered. Vexlar's transmission returned, the Krillax leader's composure restored. Humans of Earth, your resistance has been noted and categorized. You have forced us to accelerate correction protocols. Behold the cleansing light. The massive ship began to unfold like an origami nightmare, revealing what appeared to be an enormous focusing lens aimed directly at Earth. Well, Reynolds said dryly, I think they're done playing around. The cleansing light hung in orbit like a malevolent eye. Earth's military forces launched everything they had. Missiles, experimental energy weapons, even a hastily retrofitted space shuttle packed with explosives. Nothing penetrated the massive ship's defenses. Analysis, Reynolds asked, watching another missile battery's volley dissolve against the Krillax shields. Morgan studied her readings. It's converting our attacks into energy. The more we throw at it, the stronger it gets. Logical, Pulaski muttered. They've created a perfectly efficient weapon. Martinez slammed her fist on the console. We need bigger jokes. I don't think humor will work against that thing, Reynolds said, pointing at the massive weapon. No, but chaos might. Morgan replied. Look at the structure, it's perfectly symmetrical. The positioning is mathematically precise. This weapon is the ultimate expression of Krillax logic. The room trembled as the cleansing light fired its first shot. A beam of blinding energy lanced down to Earth, striking the Pacific Ocean. The water parted perfectly, exposing the seafloor in a geometrically exact circle. That was a demonstration, Reynolds realized. The next one hits land. Sir, a technician called. We're receiving a transmission from orbit, but it's not from the Krillax. The screen flickered, revealing a human face. The man wore what appeared to be a colander as a helmet. This is Captain Darius Williams of the International Space Station, he reported. We've been observing the alien superweapon. There's something odd about it. The beam isn't just destroying, it's reorganizing matter according to mathematical principles. Morgan leaned forward. Captain, can you send us your sensor data? Already transmitting. But there's something else you should know. Williams adjusted his makeshift helmet. We've been experimenting up here. The Krillax ignored us initially, because we're so small, but we found that when we play certain music over open frequencies, their smaller ships go haywire. What music? Reynolds asked. Jazz, Williams replied. Specifically, free-form jazz with no predictable pattern. Morgan snapped her fingers. Of course, music with mathematical structure they can process, but free-form jazz follows emotional logic rather than mathematical progressions. The cleansing light fired again, this time hitting the Sahara Desert. Perfect geometric patterns appeared in the sand, visible from space. They're rewriting Earth's surface, Pulaski said, awe in his voice, imposing order on chaos. Reynolds turned to Morgan. If the weapon runs on logic algorithms like you suspect, can we disrupt it? Theoretically, yes, she replied, studying the ISS data. The cleansing light requires perfect calculations to function. If we could introduce enough variables, enough chaos, We might overload its systems. Martinez looked up from her tablet. I'm coordinating with global resistance cells. Everyone's reporting the same thing. Krillax troops can't handle human illogic, but they're adapting quickly. The weapon is charging for another shot, a technician reported. Target appears to be Washington, D.C. Reynolds made a decision. Dr. Morgan, what's our best shot at disrupting that weapon? We need to upload a massive amount of chaotic data directly into their systems, she replied. But their defenses are too strong for a conventional cyber attack. Pulaski, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly perked up. The ISS, it's already in orbit. If they could physically connect to the cleansing light, that's suicide. Martinez interrupted. Maybe not, Morgan said, excitement building in her voice. Captain Williams, is the experimental quantum communicator still operational on the ISS? Williams nodded. Yes, but it's never been tested at full capacity. It doesn't need to work perfectly, Morgan explained. In fact, imperfection is our weapon. The quantum communicator operates on probability rather than binary logic. If we can link it to the Krillax systems, we could introduce quantum uncertainty into their perfectly logical weapon. Reynolds finished. Brilliant. The plan came together rapidly. Captain Williams and his crew would perform a spacewalk to reposition the quantum communicator, aiming it directly at the cleansing light. Meanwhile, Earth would launch its most chaotic transmissions yet to distract the Krillax fleet. Ready on my mark, Reynolds ordered as the cleansing light's main emitter began to glow with building energy. Around the world, humans implemented the distraction phase. Every broadcasting station began transmitting the most illogical content imaginable. Dadaist poetry, surrealist films, recordings of children, explaining why they didn't eat their vegetables. In orbit, Williams and his crew positioned the quantum communicator. Communicator aligned, Williams reported, initiating quantum entanglement sequence. Morgan watched the data flow on her screen. It's working. The quantum particles are attempting to entangle with the Krillax systems. On the tactical display, the cleansing light's emission pattern began to fluctuate. They're trying to compensate, Morgan reported. Their logical systems are attempting to resolve the quantum uncertainty. The cleansing light fired, but instead of a precise beam, the energy scattered in unpredictable patterns, missing Earth entirely. Keep pushing, Reynolds ordered. Pulaski grabbed the microphone. Hey Vexlar, why did the quantum physicist cross the road? Because he was simultaneously on both sides. The cleansing light's emitter pulsed erratically. Martinez joined in. What's the difference between a Krillax and a puzzle? One's a logical challenge, and the other can't handle a knock-knock joke. On screen, the massive weapon began to vibrate, its perfect symmetry distorting. It's working, Morgan exclaimed. The quantum uncertainty is cascading through their systems. The cleansing light fired again, but this time the beam curved in an impossible arc, striking one of the Krillax's own ships. Vexlar's face appeared on screen, compound eyes twitching frantically. What have you done? The cleansing light operates on absolute mathematical precision. Reynolds leaned toward the camera. Welcome to quantum mechanics, Vexlar, where even the universe doesn't follow your rules. I'm possible. Reality must conform to logical principles. Tell that to Schrodinger's cat, Morgan replied. The cleansing light began to fold in on itself, its perfectly symmetrical structure collapsing as quantum uncertainty spread through its systems. They're retreating, Martinez announced as the tactical display showed Krillax ships pulling away from the malfunctioning superweapon. Reynolds allowed himself a small smile. We've bought ourselves some time, but they'll be back with something even worse. Morgan nodded grimly. They're learning, adapting. Our chaotic defense won't work forever. Then we need to go on the offensive, Reynolds decided. It's time for Operation Get Really Nasty. All right, people, the time for defense is over, Reynolds announced to the assembled team in the Pentagon's newly designated Chaos Room. We're taking the fight to them. The room had transformed into a bizarre command center. Walls covered with internet memes, philosophers' paradoxes, and children's drawings. Screens displayed everything from cat videos to quantum equations. Operation Get Really Nasty has 3 phases, Morgan explained, pointing to her hastily drawn flowchart that deliberately made no sense. First, we hijack their communication systems. Second, We upload the most chaotic elements of human culture directly into their mainframe. Third, we make them feel. Martinez questioned. Emotions. Morgan clarified. The ultimate human chaos. Pulaski nodded enthusiastically. The Krillax process everything through logic. Emotions are completely foreign to them. They're the ultimate illogical force. Reynolds studied the plan. How do we implement this? I've modified the quantum communicator on the ISS to serve as a delivery system, Morgan said. Captain Williams reports the Krillax are still trying to repair the cleansing light which gives us our window. What exactly are we uploading? Martinez asked. Morgan grinned maniacally. Everything: internet comment sections, reality TV show reunions, poetry slams, political debates, music where the bass drops for no mathematical reason, and my secret weapon, my collection of cat videos set to dubstep. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. You really think this will work? Phase 1 and 2 will disrupt their systems, Morgan replied. But Phase 3 is the knockout punch. I've created a virus that simulates human emotions within their logical processing units. You've weaponized feelings, Martinez said with newfound respect. Precisely. Once uploaded, it will force the Krillax to experience emotions without the biological framework to process them. The team sprang into action. Hackers worldwide coordinated to gather the most chaotic human content. Artists created nonsensical work specifically designed to confuse logical processing. Philosophers contributed paradoxes that had stumped humanity for centuries. The ISS is in position, Williams reported from orbit. Quantum communicator aligned with the Krillax command ship. Begin Phase 1, Reynolds ordered. The attack began with a global broadcast of every illogical message humanity could produce simultaneously. The Krillax ships faltered momentarily, their perfect formations breaking as they processed the chaotic input. Phase 1 successful, Morgan reported. Their communication systems are trying to filter the noise, creating vulnerabilities. Execute Phase 2, Reynolds commanded. Williams activated the quantum communicator, establishing a direct link to the Krillax mainframe. The upload began. Terabytes of humanity's most chaotic content pouring into the aliens' logical systems. On the main screen, they watched as Krillax ships began flying in erratic patterns. Some fired weapons at nothing. Others began broadcasting human television commercials. It's working, Pulaski exclaimed. Their systems are in chaos. Vexlar appeared on screen, its exoskeleton vibrating with distress. Seize your attack. Your cultural artifacts contain irreparable logical inconsistencies. You ain't seen nothing yet, Reynolds replied. Dr. Morgan, initiate Phase 3. Morgan activated her emotional virus. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Krillax command ship began spinning in place. Others simply stopped moving altogether. Vexlar reappeared, but something was different. Its compound eyes leaked fluid. Its mandibles quivered uncontrollably. What is happening? The Krillax leader's voice modulated wildly. I feel strange. This sensation, is it sadness? Welcome to humanity's secret weapon, Reynolds said. Emotions. This is beautiful and terrible simultaneously. Vexlar responded, its voice now containing inflection for the first time. How do you function with these feelings? We don't always function well, Reynolds admitted. But it's what makes us human. Throughout the Krillax fleet, similar transformations occurred. Ships began broadcasting confused messages, some philosophical, others nonsensical. One destroyer spent 20 minutes transmitting what appeared to be poetry about Earth's oceans. They're experiencing the full range of human emotions without any evolutionary framework to process them, Morgan explained. It's overwhelming their systems. Martinez tracked the tactical display. The fleet is falling into disarray. Some ships are retreating, others are just drifting. Vexlar's transmission continued. The Krillax leader now openly displaying emotion. I understand now. Your chaos, it is not a weakness, it is beautiful, terrifying. I feel regret for our attack. Reynolds stepped closer to the screen. Then call off your forces, end this invasion. I will. Vexlar seemed to struggle with its new emotional reality. But the others, some resist the emotional program. They believe purging all emotion is the only solution. As if on cue, several Krillax ships broke formation, accelerating toward Earth with weapons charging. They're making a suicide run, Martinez shouted. Captain Williams, Morgan called urgently. Focus the quantum communicator on those ships, maximum emotional upload. The rogue ship suddenly froze mid-trajectory, then slowly turned away. It worked, Reynolds breathed in relief. Vexlar's transmission flickered. The fleet is standing down, we require time to process these new feelings. Take all the time you need, Reynolds replied. Just do it far away from our planet. The Krillax fleet began retreating, their once perfect formation now resembling a disorganized flock of confused birds. Some ships moved erratically, others drifted aimlessly. The cleansing light, still malfunctioning, was towed behind them. As humanity watched the aliens retreat, Reynolds turned to his team. Did we just win an interstellar war with cat videos and feelings? Morgan nodded. Apparently the universe's most powerful weapon was inside us all along. That's both profound and slightly nauseating, Reynolds replied. Martinez checked her instruments. They're establishing orbit around Mars. I think they're staying in the neighborhood. Probably trying to figure out what the hell just happened to them, Reynolds said. Pulaski was scribbling furiously in his conspiracy notebook. This changes everything. Aliens aren't immune to emotions. They're extra vulnerable. My theory about cosmic empathy waves was right all along. Reynolds clapped him on the shoulder. Write it all down, Siggy. Humanity might need your particular brand of insanity again someday. As the team celebrated, Morgan monitored the quantum communicator's data stream. We're still receiving transmissions from the Krillax fleet. They're different now. Different how? Reynolds asked. They're asking questions. Philosophical ones. Why do humans create art with no practical purpose? How can opposing political ideologies exist simultaneously? Why do cat videos produce emotional responses? Reynolds smiled. I think we just gave the most logical species in the galaxy an existential crisis. The Krillax fleet maintained its Mars orbit for 3 weeks following what Earth now called the Emotion Offensive. During this time, Vexlar's transmissions became increasingly philosophical and occasionally featured attempts at humor. How many Krillax does it take to calculate a space-time trajectory? Vexlar messaged Earth one day. None. We now understand that the journey itself has value beyond the destination. Reynolds stared at the screen. Did we just receive an alien dad joke? I think we broke them completely. Morgan replied with a hint of pride. On day 23, Vexlar requested a formal meeting. Reynolds found himself once again in diplomatic attire, this time aboard a neutral space station hastily constructed in Earth orbit. Vexlar entered alone, its exoskeleton now adorned with colorful patterns that seemed to have no logical purpose. Commander Reynolds, it began, voice modulation now containing inflection. I speak for the Krillax Cooperative. We have abandoned the term Imperium as emotionally unsatisfying. Cooperative, Reynolds raised an eyebrow. That's quite a change. Your emotional virus has transformed our society. Many Krillax have embraced these new sensations. Others resist. Vexlar's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. We are experiencing what you might call civil discord. Sorry about that. Do not apologize. It is liberating. We propose a treaty. The Krillax will share technology and knowledge, but we request human cultural exchanges to further understand these emotional experiences. The peace terms were quickly established. Earth would provide art, music, literature and philosophy, the very weapons that had defeated the Krillax. In return, the aliens offered advanced technology with appropriate safeguards. At the United Nations ratification ceremony, Reynolds watched as Vexlar attempted a human handshake with the Secretary General. We have established the Department of Alien Confusion, the Secretary General announced. Commander Reynolds will serve as its first director. Reynolds choked on his champagne. I'm what now? Lieutenant Kim patted his back. Congratulations, sir. Your complete lack of diplomacy has become Earth's most valuable asset. As Earth celebrated, reports arrived from deep space monitoring stations. Other alien civilizations were changing course, actively avoiding Earth's solar system. We're being quarantined, Morgan observed, reviewing the data. They're afraid of us. Can you blame them? Martinez replied, "We defeated the galaxy's most advanced species with cat videos and feelings." Pulaski, now officially employed as the department's chaos consultant, studied the star charts. "They've labeled us. Look at these transmissions. They're calling us the chaos species." Reynolds smiled. "I can live with that reputation." 6 months later, Reynolds stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Interspecies Cultural Exchange Station. Below, Earth continued its recovery. Beyond, the stars beckoned. His communicator chimed with a message from Vexlar. "Humans have a saying, it's always darkest before the dawn. I finally understand this illogical statement. Through darkness, one appreciates light. Through order, one appreciates chaos. Through Krillax, one appreciates humans." Reynolds typed back, "That's deep for a giant space bug. I am practicing humor." "Is it working?" "Keep practicing." As he gazed at the stars, Reynolds reflected on humanity's strange victory. They hadn't won through superior firepower or technology, but through their most chaotic, illogical, and emotional qualities, the very aspects of humanity that had always seemed like weaknesses. "Sir," Kim reported from the doorway, "the Zorblat delegation has arrived. They're requesting an explanation of why humans keep pets that serve no practical purpose." Reynolds straightened his uniform. "Tell them I'll bring pictures of my cat." After all, if humanity was going to be known as the chaos species, they might as well embrace it. The universe had unleashed hell, and humans had responded by getting really, really nasty with their feelings. And that, as it turned out, was the most terrifying weapon of all.